Gentlemen, we have a problem that is plaguing men, and it's existed for a while, but it is getting worse with the evolution of technology and online dating and so many other distractions. And it's about time that we start having an honest conversation about this issue. Now look, this is a personal subject. I don't really want to air out my own story here, but my goal here is to get through to at least one of you that is struggling with intimacy issues in the bedroom. Now, there are two primary areas that I see men struggling as far as intimacy issues in the bedroom. So in this video, we're going to break down both of those issues. I've dealt with them. I'm going to talk about how I went from not having issues to having issues and then to not having issues again. I'm going to share with you guys the tips that I used to overcome those mental hurdles that were causing those intimacy issues. And I want you to know this isn't something that will change overnight. And because I know that, I'm going to share a trick with you that you can use in the meantime. Listen, I used that trick for a few years while I was working through my own stuff, and it honestly saved my sex life. All right, and in case this is your first time to my channel, my name is KJ Harlow, and I am here to be a positive force for men who are struggling romantically and socially, okay? I've been through the worst of it, so I empathize. Like, whatever you're going through, I've been there. But this channel does not exist to throw you a pity party. I'm not here for the complainers and the whiners. We're not talking problems, we're talking solutions. Again, we're keeping it positive and we're focused on taking agency and authority over the results we're getting romantically and socially, okay? We're not playing victim card here, so as long as that's good with you, let's dive into the video. All right, we have two key areas where men are struggling in the bedroom as far as intimacy issues. All right, issue number one is they can't really get it started, if you know what I mean. And issue number two is not being able to cross the finish line. Now, I first ran into intimacy issues when something happened to me. And what happened was I had a girl that I had been seeing. This was, around 19 years old. And she decided to tell people in my social network and social circle that I wasn't really getting the job done in the bedroom. Now, that was humiliating. It was very embarrassing. And the result of that was that I became obsessed with being a better partner and a better lover in the bedroom. Now, here's the problem. As I improved my skills, I also made things very mechanical and transactional. And instead of being like in the passion of the moment, I was just thinking way too much. Now, I didn't struggle so much with intimacy issue one, which is getting started, but I did struggle a lot with intimacy issue number two, which is crossing the finish line, because I, would get so involved with trying to make sure I was doing the right things mentally. I would check out of like the actual physical enjoyment of the moment. Now, whether you're struggling with issue one or issue two, I've worked with men who have dealt with both, and I have a handful of tips that I want to cover really quick that will help you kind of work through these over time. All right, tip number one, and this is something me and my old wingman Dax used to talk about. It's highly effective. It's called taking a halftime. And all I mean by that is taking a breather, man. Like sometimes if it's not working, you just need to take a moment. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10, 20. It could be just literally laying there with the girl. Maybe it's going and pouring yourself a cocktail or grabbing a bottle of wine and bringing it back to the bedroom. Just take a little break. And 99% of women are going to be down to do this because look, man, they came here for the same thing you did. They want this to happen one way or another, whether it's getting started or crossing the finish line. The girl wants that for you too. Part of the enjoyment of, intercourse or, sexual relations is knowing that the other person enjoyed themselves too. So, if it's not happening, don't be afraid to be like, hey, let's take a little break and like pick this back up again in a few minutes. Trust me, this saved a lot of sexual interactions for me. And what it did is instead of, having a sexual relationship that basically just falls apart because you couldn't get the job done, it could get you by and at least get you to the next time where hopefully things will go a little bit better. And a quick side note about why the halftime works is because, at least for me, it was like mentally reassuring. Like if the girl is down to take a break and then pick this back up again, it was like a confirmation in my head that like, she is attracted. She does want this. She does want me to also enjoy myself. So, I think that mental reassurance goes a long way. All right, tip number two is communicate your triggers. Man, this is something that I've had to do with like all of my long-term girlfriends. And even, with like some of the girls that I dated in more short-term situations, it helps a lot to communicate your triggers. So for me, I wrote a couple down, and these are things that like women would say that would like snap me out of the passion of the moment and then like just make me start overthinking, right? So one is, do you think you're going to be able to finish, or are you close, or how much longer? I want you to finish. Like all of these things were probably well intended by the woman, but all it did for me was just mentally take the wind out of my sails and make me feel like too much pressure. And then it just couldn't happen, right? Communicating those things made a world of difference. So that's tip number 2, is let your partner know, man. If there's something that she's saying that is freaking you out, just make it known. Then take the halftime, maybe have a cocktail or something and then pick it up again. Watch, it'll work magic for you. All right, now tip number 3 might sound kind of like common sense, but listen, as someone who has done this myself, I can attest to the power of this. Now, it's kind of awkward to talk about it, and I'm trying to phrase it in a way that won't get me in trouble, right? So bear with me here if I sound a little goofy, but tip number 3 is adjusting the style in which you take care of yourself. Now, that sounds a little funny, but since I used to struggle with this, upon doing some research, I actually found that this is something that's been looked into by all sorts of sex professionals. And what they found is that some men are stimulating themselves in ways that are like overly aggressive, or, they're doing it in a way that's training their body to only respond to like a highly aggressive form of stimulus, which just simply can't be replicated by the female body. So if that sounds familiar, I encourage you to adjust the way that you are taking care of yourself, and also be careful that you're not mentally desensitizing yourself too, right? So if you have a combination of you're watching a lot of pornography and things that are like overstimulating your mind, and then you're overstimulating yourself physically, well, now your body is just trained to respond to something different than what a woman can offer. All right, so tip number 4, and maybe this isn't as applicable to some of you, but hopefully, at least a handful of you take something away from this, and that's pursue longer term relationships, right? So when I was in the heat of my dog days is when I was really having the most issues. And at that time, I was just trying to date as many women as I could, and not seriously, right? I was just trying to have fun. And the result of that was that I fell into kind of this like mechanical, transactional, sexual flow. And, it was almost like I was chasing the clothes and not chasing like the moment and enjoying it. And so, as I started to calm myself down and engage in more serious relationships, and then really when I found my wife is like ultimately when everything got better, because that's how it was intended to be, if we're being honest, right? I know the whole world wants us to think that, you can just fool around with whoever you want and there's zero consequences and everyone just do whatever they want. But the honest to God truth is this: men and women were meant to have sex with each other when they're in love, right? I think somewhere deep in our core, we all know that. So if you're having these issues and you're just like enjoying a bunch of like carefree sex, well, maybe start trying to reorient yourself into long-term relationships. All right, now at the beginning of this video, I told you guys that I had a little trick that I was using to get me by in the intermediary. Now, once again, I have to find a way to describe this that won't get me in trouble with YouTube. So again, if it sounds silly, bear with me. The trick is this: if you are unable to finish the job, via intercourse or foreplay or whatever, then maybe get yourself across the finish line, if you know what I mean, and have the woman be involved in that in whatever capacity she wants to be. Now listen, when I was struggling, I did this many times, and let me tell you something, it saved me dozens of times, honestly, whether it was with a girl that I was dating or just, a fun one night thing, because again, the girl wants it to happen, you want it to happen, everybody will feel better if it does. So if it takes you, helping yourself to get across the finish line, that's still much better than just throwing the towel in and being like, oh, sorry, it's not happening. Now you're probably watching this thinking, well, how the heck do I approach this? I mean, honestly, man, just ask. That's what I used to do. And I'm telling you, not a single time did I ask and I got a no. And not a single time did I ask and the situation became awkward. Pretty much every single time the girl was like super stoked that I even suggested it, because again, they just want it to happen too. That's why we're all here, bro. So listen, if you are struggling with this and you think that maybe it's deeper seated, okay? It could be like rooted in trauma, or some major insecurity that you have yet to address. Well, that might be something that you would consider consulting a mental health professional on. Okay, the techniques that I'm sharing with you guys, they work for me, they've worked for a bunch of men, but there are certain things that you need true mental health professionals to assist you with and to help you work through. Okay, I highly recommend that if this is something that you think goes deeper than just kind of like surface level, I get in my head too much. If it's real serious, go seek help, guys. That's totally okay, and I encourage that. Now listen, fellas, if you found value in this content, don't leave me hanging. Please like and subscribe. Once again, my name is KJ Harlow. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.